Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. With more than 30 weekly podcasts, HRN has something for every food lover. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by 818 Tequila, delicious and smooth tequila made in harmony with the earth. 818 Tequila, imported by 818 Spirits Manhasset, New York. 40% alcohol by volume. Drink responsibly.
Hey, welcome to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carboni. I'm the host here at Beer Sessions Radio. It's Tuesday, March 3rd, 2022. This will be episode 627, and it's a fitting episode because both of our guests have been on the show with me before, and they've also been part of our different Food Karma events over the years. So let's introduce each other. I'm Jimmy Carboni. I'm the host. Peter, a quick introduction about you and Twin Star.
Sure. My name is Peter Yee from Brooklyn Cider House, and we produce cider at Twin Star Orchards in New Paltz, New York. My sister and I founded the company 8 years ago, and we love cider, and we produce cider up here.
Okay. And Ray?
Hey, I'm Ray Sheehan, and I am the founder and owner of BBQ Buddha. And just like Peter, I founded my company about 8 years ago as well. It's an all-natural sauce, barbecue sauce and seasoning company. And I'm also a cookbook author. My first book was all about award-winning barbecue sauces. And the second book was all about cooking on the Big Green Egg, in part inspired because we won Sauce King NYC Grand Championship for sauces, and the grand prize was a Big Green Egg.
Wow, Ray. Thank you, Ray and Peter. Yeah, so, back in the head year of the pandemic, 2020, we couldn't do any events, and we did come up with Sauce King NYC, and Ray really stood out as someone who, he was already writing recipes for a national barbecue magazine. He had a new book out, someone who really understood the culinary aspect of sauce and cooking and barbecue. So we're really thrilled to have you on with Peter Yee, who's also an expert on cider and food and pairings. We're going to talk about getting ready for your kicking off summer, barbecue and grilling and food and cider pairings. And I'll talk about a few beer pairings. So Ray, deep down inside, you always wanted to be a cook, and you've worked all over the place. Let's talk about when you first started BBQ Buddha. Why a sauce? Why not a restaurant? Everybody wants to do something with their cooking skills.
My background has been, in the food world ever since I can remember. I've worked in just about every aspect, from being a busboy up to being a chef and then a food service director for a natural food store chain. And, I was never really satisfied, I don't know. I was always curious about the next flavor and the next pairing and the next, meal. And, I did the culinary school thing. I worked in fine dining. I worked in, every different aspect. And I've always wanted to have a restaurant. But more than that, I wanted to have a product on the shelf. And long story short, my wife gifted me a smoker for my birthday, and I started creating different flavor profiles to go on the meats that I was cooking. And little by little, people were loving the sauce and the seasoning. So I decided to start that as a company on the side, so to speak. I kept my day job. And for the first probably 3-4 years that we were in business, I kept my day job. And then little by little, I started coming out with this, first was the Memphis Mop, and that's been driving the bus for us. It was the winner at Sauce King. It's won probably almost 36 different sauce awards. And all of our products are all natural. There's no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives in any of them. I really wanted to create food and food profiles that, you would feel good giving to your family. But I would say that at this point in my career, a restaurant is on the horizon.
Yeah.
That's going to be the logical next step.
Wow, that's great. And again, you stand out because you wrote so many recipes. What was the National Barbecue magazine that you still write for?
It used to be called National Barbecue News. They rebranded, and it's Barbecue News Magazine. And it's it has a reach of, I think, about 50,000 online, and then I'm not sure exactly the print edition, but it's in the thousands. And it's been a really great experience. In the world of barbecue, there really is a place for everyone to belong. And they welcome me with open arms. They've profiled me. They've given my recipes out, my articles, product reviews, and I've learned a lot, and I've contributed a lot along the way. And through the course of my time at the Barbecue News magazine I've been writing for them for the last 5 years. I won a couple awards of excellence for my writing from the National Barbecue Association. So that was really gratifying because, going back, 10 years ago, I had no idea that was even possible or that I would be in this world. But it's really helped me to flourish as a culinarian and as a barbecue guy, like even just in the backyard. And I'm really grateful for the opportunities.
Wow. Now, Peter, you're always someone that very quietly blows people away because I remember a few years ago you were on with Steve Sullen from South Hill Cider, and we were talking about still cider. Just tell us, you're a noted retail wine person in New York City, and somehow you got enamored with Spain and the ciders of Spain.
Yes. I used to be in the wine industry for 25 years, and I fell in love with cider while I was on a wine trip in Spain, in the northern part of Spain, the Basque part of Spain, while I was tasting chocolate. So there's a town called Giteria where they produce incredible chocolate, very crisp white wine from the Basque region. And while I was there, a friend of mine said, "Peter, do you want to go try some cider at a cidery?" And I wasn't really interested because cider for me back then, when I was in the wine industry, I would say 9 years ago, I had, no respect for cider. I didn't like cider, so I declined. And my friend said, "Peter, you should really go try some cider because it's from my town and it's something spectacular." He convinced me. I went to the cidery and I took one sip of the cider and I knew my life would change. It took me 1 second. And this cider was not what I expected because I know in the States it was, most ciders are sweet and fruity and carbonated. this was very far from that. It was complex, dry, minerally, and it was something that I was not familiar with, but it was absolutely sensational. So it really rocked my boat. I was super excited. And then, came home and with a case of cider, and I tasted, my family. I said, this is my new passion, my love, and this is what I think I want to devote my life to. And I tasted them on it, and many of them said, yuck, what is this stuff? So it's a cider that is made naturally. And it's it's a cider that's difficult to understand, but once you understand it, it's spectacular, because it's, if the apple was to fall from a tree and ferment in its own skin, that's what that natural cider would taste like. And that's what I fell in love with. Then from that on, my cider journey went, to other regions, because I knew that, since my family had a difficult time, liking the cider, I also had to come up with other ciders that are a little more friendly. So I went to Brittany and Normandy, and then I tried out a lot of ciders from all over the world to really discover what how I can enter the cider industry. So still today, after 8 years being in the cider industry, I still love the Basque style cider, and that's the cider that I drink on a regular basis, and I produce that style of cider. I also make 7 or 8 other ciders that are a lot more friendlier, and it's a little bit easier to drink.
So right now, tell me the label. So it's Brooklyn Cider House.
It's the label's Brooklyn Cider House, and the black belt cider that I fell in love with is called Raw.
And that's like super dry. Is that the kind that you'd have coming out of the cask, like that you'd catch?
Yes.
Catch. So describe what catch a little bit, because I'm turning this into a food and cider show. So the experience of catching the cider and drinking it, and some of the foods and flavors that you would taste in Spain with cider.
Yes. So while I was there in the cider house, they would first of all, the ambiance it's very rustic, lots of wooden benches, gigantic chestnut barrels, 2,000, 3,000 gallon barrel each, and they had as many as 12 to 15 barrels, and they would people would line up and catch cider from these gigantic barrels. So they would open up a spigot, and it would shoot out a beam of cider, and you will line up with your glass, catching the cider splashing all over the place. But people would be, bumping elbows. They would be drinking, smiling, laughing. It's a incredible social scene. It's a gathering place, and it's a place where, grandma, grandpa, to, young people, and mid-aged people, they all get together, drink great cider, and have food. And the food they basically pair there is they have chorizo cooked in cider is the first dish, and then there is a bacalao omelet, and there is a bacalao that's just cooked bacalao, and then there is a steak. And what's really surprising is most people wouldn't pair cider with steak, but it really works incredible with beautiful charred rare steak, and cider works really well. But it works. Cider works well with all the dishes. So it works well with chorizo, with the bacalao, with the omelet, and the steak. And at the end, they give you for dessert they give you membrillo, which is a quince, and they give you a whole walnuts, and you have to kind of learn how to open a walnut and have walnuts, quince, and finish that off with cider. So not only did I fall in love with with the food, I fell in love with the ambiance as well.
Now that's a great intro. And I remember several years ago sitting with you and having the cider with the beef, and it was like a thin piece of beef with a bone on it, and to me that was like the perfect pairing. I loved it. So back to Ray. So Ray, going deeper, you smoke, you cook with fire, you've got all these great past stories. Now you got the Big Green Egg basics, but for our listeners, barbecue world out there, how did you become like a competitive barbecue judge? What does that take?
Well, to become a judge, you basically take a 1-day class, and they feed you, different types of barbecue, and they basically show you how to judge it and why something would be, one thing versus another, like one grade versus another. But they purposely give you bad barbecue during it. So it's not like you're just sitting there eating this great barbecue. They want you to, they want to try to create consistency of, why something would be down and not so low, or, so you're just basically tasting, and then you're grading it. And then now they've actually come out with a new program to recertify, which I have to do, which you would do online with the Kansas City Barbecue Society. So basically, like, online testing now that's the next level of it. But when I started with the barbecue world, I just started like, with a competition team that I was just helping them out. And as in the food world, how I got into food world was I was basically, an intern or someone who worked for free because I was so passionate about wanting to learn the fundamentals before going to culinary school, that I went and worked for free for some of the best people that I could find in my area. People that had their restaurants rated in Gourmet Magazine. They used to have Top Tables issue every year. And just because I wanted to learn how to pair flavors and different profiles, and just basically how to do the fundamentals. So I always got the short end of the stick. I always had to do like the really when I was doing my internships, like they would do, boiled ham hocks. I would have to pick the hot, meat out of the ham hocks, or cut all the garnish for, all the vegetables for garnish for service in specific cuts, your brunoise, your baton cuts. And it was really a great learning experience. And with barbecue, I started helping out a competition team and washing their pots and pans and learning how they season this or inject that and what they use, what kind of products. And so when I wanted to come out with my own products, it gave me an idea, it gave me a baseline of what profiles I was going for.
For sure.
With my barbecue Buddha belly rub, I wanted to come out with the rub that was really great for low and slow smoking. So it's sugar forward, it's low in sodium. It's like an all-purpose. You can use it on salmon. You can use it on your brisket in conjunction with like a kosher salt and cracked black pepper if you wanted to, because it is low in salt. So those flavors would complement each other, and you would just build layers of flavor with them.
Well, I'll tell you, Ray, next time you get to pick ham hocks, I'll join you, because I just love those inner pieces of meat and pig and everything. Yeah. Hey, so you part of this show, we're going to talk about some of the recipes from your book, The Big Green Egg Basics, and we're going to talk about pairing them with cider. Originally, some of these are designed to pair with beer. Let's talk about, since we were talking beef, let's talk about the smoked beef plate ribs. And just talk us through the techniques that you learned from using the Big Green Egg, because I'm always confused too. A few years ago, I actually had 6 Big Green Eggs for an event, and it was interesting to see what chefs were doing with them. Some people say like these Komodo style cookers are more like almost like a tandoori oven. What was it like for you having this big green egg in your yard and getting the time to play around with it?
Well, it has that like ceramic core. So the one thing that I have to say about the egg that I think is really amazing, and let me start off by saying I'm not affiliated with Big Green Egg, and I don't have, this is an independent guide. My book, Big Green Egg Basics from a Master Barbecuer, is an independent guide, and but I really love their product. Big Green Egg stands behind their product, and I just love it. And one of the things that I've found with the egg, because of its amazing heat retention properties with the ceramics, that it's really economical on fuel. So one load of charcoal I can run for like 18 hours if I'm doing a low and slow cook. You don't have to, when you put your charcoal in, if you're going to do a low and slow smoke, in the book I suggest that you layer, a few chunks of charcoal throughout when you load up your charcoal. And this way, as it burns down, you get that shot of wood to season the whatever you're cooking throughout the cook. So you don't have to take it apart and add more wood or add any, you're going to get in one long cook everything if you set it up in the beginning like that. It's really amazing for smoking in that regard because I don't have to fool with it. Like it is more of once you dial in your temperature, it's all about controlling the airflow in this cooker. So if you open it, you're going to get a higher heat. If you close your vents, you're going to cut down your temperature, but you have to keep in mind it does take longer to cool it down than it does to heat it up because of the ceramic interior.
So it's kind of like once you get it going, you want to use it, like kind of like an old fashioned oven.
Right. Once you get it really super hot, it would be easier to do like say, a reverse sear where you cook it low and slow for a while and then pump up, turn up the heat on it, like open your vents to increase your airflow and your heat, and then sear your beef or your pork at the end to get a nice crispy crust. You want to get that like nice char on it, because that's really where the umami flavor is. After it's been like cooking low and slow, and then you caramelize the meat juices onto the beef. It's like you just want to like gnaw at that. That's where you're getting that flavor.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm on page 75 of your Big Green Eggs Basics book, and I know we did an interview with you earlier where we talked about the smoked beef plate ribs. Just walk us through that recipe and what the seasoning is, because it says beef rub, and then I want to ask Peter about how he'd go about pairing with that.
With each book and with each recipe, I try to provide as much value to the reader as I can. So with these, you can use simply, kosher salt and cracked black pepper. But throughout this book, just like the other book, I like to put different rubs and different sauces. So you can refer back to the book. Maybe you use this beef rub on a brisket. Maybe you use it on a steak. This is like brisket on a stick. So it would be, the equivalent. But the beef rub is great. It's like, you start with your kosher salt, your cracked black pepper, and then you punch it up with a little garlic, a little onion. And for me, the smoked paprika really ties it all together.
Oh, I see. In the recipe, you actually you give a recipe for a beef rub. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. There is a recipe for beef rub. Like I
So
said,
there's no
great.
sugar. I feel like there's a lot of seasonings that go heavy on sugar or salt. Yours seems pretty balanced.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. If I was going to season this, like I said, you could technically use just salt and pepper if you wanted to. A lot of Texas style barbecue is, simply salt and pepper. But I like to add a few other flavors, and especially the smoked paprika. I think it gives it another layer of flavor. But basically, once your cooker comes up to temperature, you put your ribs on, and you let the Big Green Egg do the work for you for 3 hours approximately. You're gonna just let it do its thing, and you're going to really leave it undisturbed for that time. And then what I like to do, excuse me, is I pour a little liquid, in there. Like I like to use beef stock. Some people, so I know some people use an apple juice or just water, but the beef broth really, to me, it's consistent. It enforces that beef flavor, and then wrap it, and then that's going to come up, bring it up to temperature. You put them back on the egg, but the egg does all the work. I mean, it makes it like so easy. Like when you look at these ribs, they're like kind of like dino bones. It looks like something that's going to be really intimidating. But, once you dial in your temperature and you follow a few simple steps, I mean, you're going to get great results with this flavor profile and with these directions on how to cook it on the egg.
Wow. So now to cider and pairings. Peter, I heard that you have a old world palate.
Mm. I think so. I like traditional things. I like traditional wines. I like Bordeaux and Burgundies, Loire Valley wines, Beaujolais. And I think my palate's kind of, into traditional things, traditional foods. I very much like wood fire, foods. So I think barbecue is something I'm also dabbling into as well up here in the orchard.
Yeah. So what's your food setup like up there? And so it's Twin Star Orchards. Just I haven't been up there. I was only in the Brooklyn location. So what's it like as a customer? What can I eat and drink there?
Oh, absolutely. Only on the weekends, though. On Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, you can come up, and we have wood fire grill. We have wood fire oven for the pizza. So I wanted to pair food with my cider. So I and since I've been exposed to incredible foods from around the world. And I wanted to do something wood fire because we have, so much, apple wood up here, as well as a lot of other varieties of wood. It's red oak is very plentiful up here, so we do a lot of our cooking with apple wood and red oak. So here we serve pizzas, burgers. We also do brisket. We do ribs up here, and people can walk around, pick your own fruit, sit down, have a glass of cider, order food, have some nice wood fired foods, and then call it a day. And we all of our ciders work really well with food because I think a lot of it has to do with my background. I was in the wine industry, and when do you drink wine? You drink wine,
of course.
When you have food. My mind always is, thinking about the perfect pairing. If I'm drinking a wine, I'm thinking about a food that would pair well, and then if I'm also vice versa, if I'm having a certain type of food and I'm thinking about, which wine would pair really well with this particular dish. So with that in mind, I'll also, produce cider. So all of our ciders pair really well with food.
So back to the beef rib. It kind of feels like when you have the steak at your Brooklyn location. Again, what would you pair with a beef ribs? It's like smoked, a little rub, paprika, little wood on it.
Well, for me, the first thing that comes to my mind is because it's not really, it doesn't have any like sweet flavors. I would love to pair that with raw. Just throw the cider as high as you can, catch it, and then you throw it back. I mean, I think with that natural acidity, it would cleanse the palate. So it would work really well. So I would say that natural cider, very dry, tart, funky cider would go great
And so
with
you
that
kind of
dish.
pour it from high to aerate it. What does that
Yeah,
do
yeah,
when you aerate it? Because
to activate it.
otherwise it's like kind of more still and it's the sourness. So yeah, what does the high pouring do to your palate?
Well, it opens up the cider, so aromatically, and also flavor profile as well. So it activates the cider. So that cider, that still cider, has been sitting for a long time, in the bottle or in the tank, and then you want to wake up that cider. So by throwing that cider, it gives life to that cider. The wonderful flavors really jump out when you throw the cider, when you activate the cider.
It's really a whole different culture, isn't it? So you're using the words like throw cider, catch cider, high pour. It's definitely a great show at a party, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Also, another great thing would be like Peroni. Like I don't know if you tried. I'm sure you tried the Peroni before, but it's like a little. It's like one of those little genie bottles that's transparent. It's glass. You fill it with cider and you kind of raise your arm really high and you let it pour out slowly. It kind of acts as like the high pour from a bottle or from a barrel, but it's kind of in this glass genie. Yeah, it's called a Peroni.
Yeah, I know what it is. It looks like almost like a vase type of thing. A pour. Yeah, they're amazing. Those are great. Well, wow. And Ray, when I was thinking about your pairings too, I'm drinking an OEC, which is from Connecticut, one of my favorite, old world style, but made in Connecticut, and it's a pilsner. And taking Peter's lead, I'm just like a simple pairing to go with the beef, and with meat, there's always that little bit of fat. Were you thinking of any pairings? Because I know we're going to go through a few more of your recipes. Is there something is there a beer that you drink that goes with some of your dishes when you're out on the grill?
Yeah, I mean, with the plate ribs, if I was going to do a beer, I would probably go with like a porter or a stout. You know, we were talking about like, some of the other recipes like the hot wings. The hot wings have such a bold flavor that I feel like something hoppy, like an IPA or an American Pale Ale, something with like citrusy kind of notes. I mean, you could take your pick, but something that's gonna kind of balance, the heat. Like, one of my favorite dishes in the book is the New Orleans style barbecue shrimp, and I think that we had discussed this another time, and you said that was a dish that you really liked.
Yeah, always a favorite. It's so deceptively simple, and everybody loves New Orleans style barbecue shrimp. What is New Orleans style barbecue shrimp? Because it's not just throwing shrimp with a rub in a smoker.
No, totally. It's more about the piquant sauce that it's served in that than it is of the technique of cooking it. It's and there's beer in the recipe, but when you have like shrimp are naturally sweet and have this like succulent flavor, so pairing them with like a pilsner or a lager, something that's light in color, something that has kind of like a really great balanced flavor is ideal. You don't want a beer that's too heavy or too bitter, and this way you can offer some contrast because the shrimp are naturally sweet. So you don't want to. You want something that's already balanced. The shrimp are sweet and the sauce is piquant, more like it's got a little kick to it. So that's already balanced. So you want something that will match that as opposed to fight with those flavors.
So like usually your recipe is, I used to cook it in a skillet with the seasoning and the shrimp in the shells and with a lot of butter.
Yeah, it is a lot of butter. Yeah. But basically, I tell readers in the book you can do it without the shells if you want it a little bit neater of an experience. But to have it like the way you're supposed to have it, you cook it in the shells, and it's just get some napkins and be prepared. It's going to be a little bit messy, and get some some good French baguette bread to soak up all those great juices.
Well, we're off to a great start. We're going to have to get some of Ray's recipes up to Twin Star and do a really cool cider dinner sometime soon. But hey, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in a few minutes on Beer Sessions Radio. All right.
I'm Chava Periban, co-host of Agave Road Trip on HRN, here to talk about 818 Tequila. 818 creates their tequila using traditional methods at a family-owned and operated distillery in Jalisco, Mexico. From the blue agave they grow to their recycled glass bottle, 818 emphasizes the earth's importance in all they do. Their distillery runs on biomass and solar power, which means they don't rely as much on fossil fuels and are able to reduce their carbon footprint. Their labels, corks, and boxes are all certified by the Forest Stewardship Council as coming from sustainably managed forests. 818 is a proud member of 1% for the Planet, through which they support HRN as well as Sacred, my organization in Jalisco, where together we transform agave byproducts and water waste into adobe bricks that are donated to local infrastructure projects, like a local library in Zapotitlan de Vadillo. Visit drink818.com to learn more about their sustainability efforts and find 818 near you. 818 has been part of so many magical nights for me, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. 818 Tequila, imported by 818 Spirits, Manhasset, New York. 40% alcohol by volume. Drink responsibly.
Hey, welcome back to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carboni. I'm the host. And become a member and support us at heritageradionetwork.org/donate. There's so many great shows about food and drinks, especially Beer Sessions Radio and Speakeasy and Back Bar. You can't go wrong at heritageradionetwork.org. All right. So we're talking barbecue, cider, pairings, Peter Yee and Ray Sheehan. So Peter, for you, Twin Star Orchards, I mean, this was huge. I remember when I first met you guys years ago when you were just planning to open your legendary place in Brooklyn. You were just planting trees in the Hudson Valley. Did you ever think that you would not plant trees and grow fruit? Did you ever think about just, making a product? I don't know what the words are, but I mean, you really went in ambitiously, and I really respect what you did, and I love your products.
Well, thank you. And when I fell in love with cider in Spain and came home, I had no plan of growing apples myself. I wanted to purchase apples, but a very particular type of apples, and I could not find them at that time. So I was forced to get into orcharding because I couldn't find what I was looking for. So what I was looking for were cider apples. And cider apples are different, just like grapes for wine, such as Cabernet and Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, is different than table apples like Thompson's Seedless or Concord Grape. Eating grapes or table grapes are not very good for producing wine, and it's the same thing with apples. Table apples are meant to be consumed, as a fresh fruit, and it's not so good for making cider. So I was forced to kind of go into orcharding. If I knew that I was going to take this seriously, I had to grow the fruit myself. So that's why, I got into orcharding, not really knowing how deep I was going to get myself into, how difficult it was going to be for farming, because I think it takes generations to really figure out how to farm efficiently.
So how are you going to do that? I mean, is your daughter involved with your business now?
Yeah, my daughter's involved. She's very involved. She's working here full time with me. She loves cider, and my son is also in the wine industry. So he is not in the cider industry, but he is fermenting fruit.
Yeah, and when you first started, I mean, how many acres do you have planted now with cider trees?
We have 60 acres of cider apples, and the whole property is 210 acres.
Wow! And about how many cider trees do you have per acre?
We have just shy of 300.
Wow! And is there? How did you figure out that formula? Like, were you modeling it on Hudson Valley apple growers? Did you have experts come from Spain to help you?
No, we had help from a lot of from Cornell. We also have a really great consultant, Mike Biltonen, that has always been by our side. He's had years and years of experience orcharding, and we wanted to plant a very specific type of apples, but also we wanted it to be a certain root stock. We wanted to be, as sort of the roots to be very deep in the soil. So we don't have any dwarf trees, meaning that we don't have high density plantings. So most of our trees are fairly big, anywhere from, 10 to 15 feet. And they're called semi-dwarfs. And all of our farm it's dry farmed. So we don't water our trees. It's just what Mother Nature provides. And in order to do that, it's much it's better to do when you have very deep roots, such as semi-dwarfs or standard root system.
Wow. No, man, it's a great story and a great journey, and it was great having you at Brisket King a couple weeks ago. It was the first time I had you actually pouring yourself at one of our events. What's it like for you? I mean, you've got a great presence, and you really represent your brand well. Is that a new thing for you, going out to events with Brooklyn Cider House?
Oh yes, because because I'm kind of obsessed with a lot of the things in-house, making sure that things operate correctly in-house. So I was never able to do that when our Brooklyn location was open. So, I never had the opportunity to go out, but, since we closed Brooklyn and we have a strong team now, and, my daughter's involved here up in New Paltz, and, we have a great general manager. Now I have time to go out and, see the world. So, I have not really been to many events, but I'm starting to attend a lot of events now. Well, I'm going to, make it a point to go to events.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get you guys at our upcoming Rib King event, May 28th at the historic outdoor Snug Harbor. And I'll tell you what you would be paired with if you can come. I'm putting you in a kind of a Taste of Spain section. We've got our friend from Tierra Colada, which they have an olive oil estate in Spain, and he's just been selling it under his own label. He'll have one table, and next time we have a 24-month aged Kentucky ham from our friend Dakota Hams. So you'll basically be getting something like a Iberico ham and Spanish olive oils and flavors like that. And I picture you with Brooklyn Cider House or another really dry cider next to it. Is that something does that inspire you when you think about Spain and pairings? I think I want to hear more about your time in Spain and because I feel like that cider life and grilling food and wood fire kind of is similar to what barbecue is here in America.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I spent a lot of time in Spain, and they do they have their own version of barbecue. They when you go to the cider house, they have a barbecue grill that they cook on wood, and also they have a tradition of doing like barbecue fish. But also I spent a lot of time in Argentina where asado is very, very popular. Yeah, and one of the inspirations for me to do all like wood fire cooking is, I have a chef that I really admire in Argentina called Francis Marman, and he has I've been to many of his restaurants, and he has one restaurant called Seven Fires up in Mendoza, and I spent a lot of time in Mendoza, and that's one of the inspiration that made me fall in love with wood fire foods. And Spain for sure is they're in love with wood fire cooking as well. So I think the cider should go really, really well with barbecue. I think barbecue and cider, it goes hand in hand. Barbecue is a American, cooking, and cider is a all American beverage. It was the preferred beverage, for the presidents, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and it was the beverage that was more popular than wine, beer, or water back then. But it was totally forgotten about during Prohibition, and during Prohibition, all these cider apple trees were ripped out and replaced, and cider producers are now starting to bring back these traditional cider apple varieties, and to pair cider and barbecue, I think is all American pairing.
I'll tell you, one of our friends, Tank Jackson, he's a heritage hog farmer in South Carolina. He's known as Holy City Hog. He'll be coming up for the Rib King event May 28th, and he's a big fan of Spanish cider. He's been working in South Carolina with an importer of Asturian ciders. So we're definitely thinking more cider than ever for barbecue. And Ray, for you, when we're talking about that shrimp dish, the New Orleans style barbecue shrimp, I was thinking IPA. I was thinking some of the Carton Boat beer that I used to love so much, like a session IPA with a little hops on it. I can't stop talking about some of your dishes. So you got a queso dish. Talk us through making a queso dip on the big green egg.
The queso dip is really just it's like a really fun dish that's super easy to throw together on the egg. I mean, you basically you saute. In this recipe I use sausage, so you saute that, cook that ahead of time, and then you just put all your cheeses and your spices and your cilantro and chilies and everything into either a cast iron skillet or whatever pan you're using, and it goes right on the egg, and it just makes it so easy. It's like one of those things that, like I said, once you get your egg dialed in, you throw this dish on there, the egg does all the work, you give it a couple stirs, but the main thing really for me is I like to just let it be for the first part of the cooking. So this way, like, when you spritz your meats on the smoker, that water catches the smoke and really helps to adhere the smoke flavor to the meat. Well, same thing with the queso dip, because it has a moist environment and you have that all that surface area. That's why I won't stir it in the beginning, because I want all that surface area to take on some of that smoke. I don't want to over smoke it. I want to use that smoke seasoning like salt and pepper, and I just want to like give it like kind of a mild kick of it. I want it to be like background, not like this smoky thing that you can't even eat, with creosote. But I'll let it sit for a little while before I start stirring it up. And that's it. I mean, that's the whole dish. It's just so easy on the egg. And, if I was going to pair it with, say, a beer, I probably would go with something like, something that's going to tone down the heat, something with a slight sweetness, maybe a brown ale, something that would match perfectly with that pork sausage and the cheesy goodness in there, with all the chilies.
Yeah. Can you talk us through your queso recipe? Because queso is confusing. To some people, it's just like a cheese sauce. To others, it's got sausage and it's richer. What is your queso recipe?
So mine is a little bit richer, and it does have sausage in it. For mine, I have like sausage and a few different types of cheese, and then I have onions and peppers, and all these things you can prep ahead of time. Your jalapenos, your green peppers, diced tomatoes, and all the seasonings. And it's really just, everything goes into your pot and onto the egg, and you really don't even stir it until everything starts to kind of meld together. And then after that, I don't stir it until, like I said, because I want to build a little bit of the smoke into it. But basically, once you get your big green egg up to temperature, you combine all the ingredients, except for your, like, say, I like to have fixins with mine. So once it does come off the cooker, I'm going to top it with like scallions, and I have even some, you can do like a little sour cream if you like. Even like candied jalapenos on top, or pickled jalapenos. But you basically, aside from the fixins, everything into the pot, onto the egg, until it's melted and bubbly. And it's really simple. I mean, my goal with this book was to make things for people that, like, to give them recipes that would inspire them to cook on the egg, that they weren't too complicated, because you can go and you can make, a whole cheese sauce and, start with the roux and everything. But this, to me, this was simple. This was like get people cooking, get people having fun out on the egg.
No, I'm looking at the photo in your book, the Big Green Egg Basics of the smoked queso beer dip. And that's what I think of queso. When I've had friends from Puebla and Mexico City make queso, it's a big wide top, so it's a wide skillet, and it's very thin. So it actually, the cheese and everything really gets, it's almost like, I don't want to say making nachos without the nachos, but it's not like some soupy, I've been to some Mexican restaurants where it's like a soupy cheese, cheese dip. And
right.
This is pretty great. So you really inspired me and making me hungry. And I'm looking at the pictures of your dry rubbed hot wings again too. And I do feel like that what you're doing, especially with the Komodo cooker and what Peter does, I think the flavors really do go together. Have you cooked with Cider, Ray? I want you to think of a question for Peter, because I feel like the two of you guys are going to be friends.
Yeah, I mean, I am with I'm with Peter. I love Spanish cooking, and I hope to visit Spain. And my favorite restaurant of all time has been Jose Andres restaurants in DC. Oyame and
Sure.
Jaleo. Jaleo is really, that was the first place I had the Iberico ham, and the chefs came out and explained all the dishes and the Spanish omelet. I mean, it was like such a great experience to have the smaller courses and to have more of them, because your palate really you get fatigued when if you sit down to a whole big plate of one thing, you do get palate fatigue. And it's like after the first few bites, you don't really taste, your taste buds aren't alive like they were when you first started eating it. So in this style, when you're only having a few bites of each course, the whole meal seems, it's like the sum is, it's like just greater than the sum of each dish by itself. So I can really appreciate that. But my question for you, Peter, is which one of or what type of cider would you recommend to have with like a smoked pork loin? That's like one of my favorite things, like a smoked pork loin. And why?
Well, smoked pork loin, it depends on what seasoning. If it's just a very basic seasoning and it's not spicy or sweet, I would go with like a very elegant dry cider. Maybe I would even go with like a still cider, or something that's got great acidity, something that's minerally, something dry. That could work. But also, if you were to season the loin with something, you could pair it with something a little, something a little bit sweeter, something that something that's off dry, that and maybe mildly carbonated. That could work as well. It really depends on the flavors that you put on the seasoning that determine what type of cider you would pair it with. And just like there is, thousands of different wines, there's going to be thousands of ciders that that have different profile. So it's very exciting for me to think about the cider world 20 years from now, because I think 20 years from now cider is going to be a complete game changer.
And we're still waiting for a lot of those orchards. That's part of it, right, Peter?
Oh yeah, we just need people to grow cider apples, and when people start to grow cider apples, there's going to be very high quality cider, in the marketplace. One of the things that I wanted to mention is you mentioned some wings, right? Some
Yes.
Spicy wings. I mean, that for me, I mean, there's a cider that I make called Kind of Dry. That would be an absolute perfect pairing. It's in wine, in terms of wine, what would I pair with hot wings? I would go with low alcohol German Riesling. So something that's very minerally high acid, low alcohol, that would pair well with spicy foods like that. And we have a cider just like that. I make one called Kind of Dry, and that would pair really beautifully with that.
Peter, the Kind of Dry, it's how much carbonation is it, and how sweet is it?
It's off dry. So it's 10. It's probably about 14 grams per liter of sugar, and carbonation level. It's 3 bars of carbonation.
All right, getting a picture, but I still don't know. But and for you, last question for Peter. With your background in wine, when you're describing what you just did, carbonation and sweetness levels, is it the same? You describing this on the same categories, the same levels as you would with wine, or are they different products?
No, it's same. I think wine and cider is very similar, although there are some cider makers that kind of that might not produce it like wine producers, but it's fermented fruit, and for me it's very much in line with wine. Like I don't make it differently than wine, because I made wines before, and It's very similar to making white wine.
That's great. You guys listen, it's been a really great conversation. We could continue this. Hopefully we'll have a dinner together sometime. Definitely up at Twin Star Orchards and perhaps at one of our upcoming Food Karma events. Last question for Ray. Ray, again, why the Big Green Egg Basics Cookbook? I mean, you're an accomplished chef and recipe writer. Why this book?
Well, for a number of reasons. I wanted to basically demystify the notion that cooking on the Big Green Egg is difficult. When I first tried to cook on, or when I first came in contact with the Big Green Egg, I was in a pool store and I wanted to buy this egg, but nobody knew how to use it, and I didn't know how to use it. This is many years ago, and I've since taught myself how to use it, and I wanted to share that, my trial and error and how I succeeded in using it with readers that like to grill, and kind of, like I said, demystify the notion that it's difficult to cook on. And I was really excited to win the Big Green Egg for Sauce King NYC Grand Sauce Championship. So I wanted to put that out there. But, when it came time to write another book, we kicked around a couple different ideas. And my publisher, the first idea I came with, I forget what it was now, but they were like, no, what equipment do you have? And I'm like, well, I've been cooking on this Big Green Egg. And they're like, oh, that's great. What can you tell us about it? And then one thing led to another, and that was the inspiration. Was those two things. Those were the two major turning points for me. Were making it easy for people to cook on the Big Green Egg, and they could cook, even though it's Big Green Egg Basics. The food is not basic. It's the basics and really the fundamentals of how to light the grill, how to set it up, how to control your temperatures, how to cook, bake, roast, smoke, all on one cooker. And there's even two, like I said, there's two baking chapters. There's a sweet and a savory baking chapter. So you can do everything from cooking your Thanksgiving meal on the Big Green Egg. You can cook pies and cakes and cookies, and I even do my crab cakes. My crab cakes won best crab cake in Delaware at the at a festival there in Lewis, Delaware, and I wanted to get that in the book because that's another technique. You can fry on the egg, and even though I don't do a ton of frying on it, I thought that one was worthy and would offer more value to the readers because it's another technique. The chapters are set up by technique. So you have your high heat grilling, your low and slow smoking, a roasting chapter, and then the two baking chapters. And so the book really is all about technique and how to cook on this amazing piece of outdoor cooking equipment.
No, Ray, now that we're getting ready to kick off summer, it's the perfect book. There's so many sauces in there and rubs and techniques and everything. I'm gonna refer to your book all summer. So thanks so much for joining me, guys. Peter Yee from Twin Star Orchards and Brooklyn Cider House, Ray Sheehan from BBQ-beer and author of Big Green Egg Basics. I'm Jimmy Carboni. Thanks to our team, Armin Spengen, our engineer, Alex Tran, our producing intern. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time on Beer Sessions Radio. All right. Woo! Thank you, guys. Beer Sessions Radio is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.